So we're here in Lamu, and I'm doing the next reading of the book, from the book, and it's very moving to come back after 8 years. And this is the section about coming to Lamu after Claire and Bess had died. In Nairobi, far ahead of the flight to Lamu, I woke at 2 a.m. Outside Casilda's guest house, under weak moonlight, I walked through the silver darkness to sit at a small round metal lawn table. Wet from dew, the grass tufts felt sharp under my bare feet. The massive trees surrounding the garden looked like sentinel silhouettes, and a light breeze rustled through their leaves, patterning the grass in shadow and moonlight. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there, among the dark shadows, my darkest thoughts. As it became light, roosters and dogs began to crow and bark. Sprinklers hissed to life. There were 6 of us on the plane to Lamu, including one striking black man dressed in white, except for his indigo turban. His right arm was weighted with silver bracelets that jangled when he gestured. Out the window, the flat Kenyan landscape was a lot of smoke, where people were burning fields to prepare for a new crop. After an hour, the coast came into view, and I saw the endless curl of long waves striking the cream-colored beach that stretched out of sight into a haze. Close to shore, the water was turquoise, while the deeper water turned the indigo color of the man's turban. Through the haze further north was Lamu. Babu British met the plane, looking as bewildered as I felt. 10 days before, he had kissed Claire and Bess goodbye in the same place he welcomed me. Walking to the jetty, the wall of heat slowed me to a crawl. The porters lounging on the pier lifted their hands in greeting. Some knew me and knew what had happened. The village next to Lamu town is called Shela. Many Europeans own homes there. When the bow of the water taxi bit into the sand in front of Poponi Hotel, beach boys appeared to offload our bags. With Babu, I walked through the narrow streets to the house where Claire and Bess had stayed with our friend Daniela. She opened the wooden door. She had adopted 6 children, called them her rainbow family, and spread in ages between Rashid at 2 and Jasmine at 15. Daniela showed me the same room Bess and Claire had shared, an open floor, a few colorful large pillows, and a futon. After tea, she said, "Go to the beach, take a swim. It's early." I walked into the wind past Poponi Hotel. The wind was called Kaskazi, describing one that flows down Africa's coast from the north. I passed the moored dhows and the hotel owner's small yacht, and past a fort resembling the stage set of the film Beau Geste. With my eyes closed, I turned to the sun. The last push of the waves lapped over my feet. The sand on the beach was light pink. Farther along stood a group of donkeys, and I watched 2 men shovel sand into straw panniers draped across their backs. They would trot the donkeys back to Shela and use the sand for mixing concrete. To focus on the sea's horizon was calming. A memory. Over her bathing suit, Claire wore a fringed shawl wrapped around her shoulders, or tied at her waist. I entered the water wanting to do something, anything, surf a wave. Even as I turned to face the beach, I noted the waves were shallow and steep, but I extended my arms and lowered my head. The wave that picked me up smashed me into the sand, snapping my neck to the left. I crawled out of the water and lay on my back. Like quicksilver loose on a floor, a thought ran through me. What must it have been like to hit the side of the mountain traveling that fast? Lying on the sand, I felt the waves undercut my body. The sinking into sand feeling triggered an internal warning, and I stood up. To escape my grief, I wished I could become something as simple as a tree, the way Daphne avoided Apollo's advances. Probably less movement and more just one focal point would be great. The heat felt good. I dropped my trunks and walked back into the sea. I bounced 1 foot on the sandy bottom until I was out far enough to be lifted completely off my feet. I hardly had to move a leg or an arm to keep my head afloat. Walking out of the water, I had another memory. Rubbing oil on my back, I rubbed oil on hers. I watched her walk the tide line and pick up shells. The way she tilted her head regarding a shell, I knew she was editing. She'd hold it for a second, then toss it or place it in her bikini. Undressing back in our room was to have shells scatter across the floor and cover the bed. We chased each other along the sand and collapsed in the wet fury of a kiss. An image appeared as real as though she stood next to me. No, that's not right. The feeling bled out through my veins, flowed into the sea and into the palms, and for a moment I was flooded with peace. 7 years we'd known each other, 7 years. I stood on the beach, a dazzled survivor. Then the feeling evaporated and I just stood on the beach, as if, like a shadow, a cross current of long ago had passed over the present. Lamu is exotic, 1,000 years old, established by Muslim traders sailing down from North Africa in large dhows to trade in gold, slaves, and ivory. Tall buildings grew up as private homes or trade warehouses. Along the coast, Lamu joined the litany of other small coastal towns from Somaliland to Mombasa, Watamu, Malindi, Kilifi, Diani, Kigoma, and Kipageni. 2 weeks before I arrived, Bess and Claire were sunbathing, sailing, and swimming to celebrate Bess's college graduation. Bess stood 5'3". She had the color of white gold in her hair, blue eyes, and a fair complexion. She was thin, happy or angry. She was beautiful. She was loyal and close to Claire. Slowly, as we became friends, she began to ask me questions about my life and her life. She had studied Swahili and enjoyed berating the Beach Boys in Lamu when they made sexual innuendos. They were shocked when she spoke back to them in their own language. She became their friend. During their stay, Claire had found the perfect house for us. Babu couldn't stop telling me what they'd done together and how excited Claire had been about finding the house. How Bess had taken the first step toward designing a line of clothes for her age group. Claire loved donkeys. Every morning she bought carrots, lettuce, and canned tuna for the stray cats. People were appalled she would feed donkeys and cats people food. But she walked through Shella's narrow streets, feeding any donkey she met. The donkeys formed a line behind her and followed her through the narrow streets. She became known as Mama Punda. The first night at Daniela's, after I'd been to the beach, I came downstairs and joined the children in the sand-covered courtyard. 2-year-old Rashid immediately asked when Bessie was coming back. I caught Daniela's eye and our sadness mixed together over the children's heads. Bessie and Claire are not coming back, Rashid. They've gone on a long journey. I want them back. You'll see them, but not now. We walked into the open-air dining room to a meal of sautéed vegetables and steamed fish. I listened to more stories about Bess and Claire. Every now and then, remembering they were gone, Daniela stopped talking and shook her head. During the following weeks, when I met men in the street, even if I didn't know them, they would stop and say, "Jumbo." They would shake my hand, stand in front of me, then pointedly ask how I was. and end by saying, Inshallah, it's God's will. Their greeting became a daily ritual, and my answer to how are you was always not well. I was angry. I'd stand in the street looking at a wall, absorbed in a cyclone of whys and what-ifs, searching for meaning in their deaths. My questions were like asking if red was square or round. They made no sense, but I asked. To have her back would be selfish. She'd have to die again. What kind of God would kill them? Daniela explained that the men were waiting for me to say I'm fine. She said they grieve hard and then turn back to life's rambunctiousness. She said they worried for me because I couldn't say I was fine. One afternoon, moping around, Daniela said, take Rashid to the beach, but I've never taken a 2-year-old. What if he gets upset? You're no different than being with anyone. Pay attention, be kind. She bundled beach things in a bag. Rashid held my hand. He knew the way, and as she watched us depart, I imagined Daniela wondered who was taking who to the beach. We settled near the water and spread out towels. I had no energy except to mimic Rashid. He threw sand in the ocean. I threw sand in the ocean. We dug holes in the sand and let the waves fill them. We threw more sand in the ocean. We sat side by side. We splashed in waves and stomped our feet. We played donkey. We played tag. He held onto my neck to swim in deeper water. He laughed. All the time, he laughed. He spread his legs and peed in the sand. 2 women passing nudged each other to point out how cute this was. I felt self-conscious, but Rashid didn't. When he finally got tired, he cried, wholeheartedly cried, and terrified me. I carried him sobbing off the beach. But on the way back, he interrupted his crying to tell me when I took a wrong turn. At night, I practiced deep, slow breathing. Breathe in, then a long, slow exhale out my nose. I did it over and over, hoping it would help me fall asleep. It didn't help. Daniela and Babu had to plan the ceremony for scattering their ashes. We set the day. We would sail in Naomi and scatter their ashes near sunset. Other boats wanted to sail with us in tandem. I kept hoping the cloudless sky, or the sky with clouds, or the hot weather, or the cooler shower, or the ocean, or the food, or something would let me feel life could be normal. I wanted to mix Bess and Claire's ashes together. Daniela watched me pour them in a bowl and try to combine them. I wet my finger and tasted the ashes. She handed me a colorful Maasai gourd, but my hand shook too much and I spilled. Gently, she took the spoon out of my hand and completed filling the gourd with their ashes. Babu arrived to say people in the village wanted to help. A huge number of bougainvillea blossoms were being picked and would be on the jetty in large straw baskets. Babu was excited to go over the ceremony and logistics, but he tempered his enthusiasm when he saw how sad I looked. The next afternoon, we climbed aboard the dhow Naomi. Friends handed in the large baskets of colorful blossoms, and 30 of us piled on board, far too many for safety's sake. The captain, Omar, had tied bouquets of bright flowers along the dhow's rails. The small outboard motor moved the boat away from the jetty and into the current. Once in the main channel, Omar unfurled the sail to let thousands of colorful petals fly out on the wind. Totally surprised. I cried. We crossed the channel to the mangrove islands. On the way, we played songs that Claire and Bess liked on a boombox, particularly Sugar Man Rodriguez and Aretha Franklin. Inside the islands, Omar fluffed the sail, and each of us took handfuls of the bright pink blossoms to scatter into the water. Rashid laughed at this new game and threw in small handfuls. The outgoing tide carried the blossoms past the side of the boat. marking the eddy's lines, making the eddy lines visible. I poured their ashes over the side and watched a cloud of ash smoke carry away on the breeze. The heavier ashes dissolved like snowflakes as they touched the water. We sailed home, and as the sun's last rays caught the clouds, turning them light pink, and then various shades of gray, and finally a deep purple that changes, a continual and silent blessing from a different hand.